The run of solo mic'd ups begins. The boss is out of the house. The employees shall run the show, and I get to do whatever I please within the confines of what my overall boss says, and of course the FCC and many other things. So really, I don't get to do whatever I want. But welcome into Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. That is the official title, but it is going to be Mic'd Up with just me, Fulton Caster, for the foreseeable future. Jake's vacation began today. He will be gone until January 9th. So if you listen to this show or you watch this show on our YouTube stream for just Jake, one, I really can't blame you. I understand. I don't take it personally. Two, you will be disappointed up until January 9th. But for the rest of you out there, it is just me. I will have Kyle Manthey helping me throughout these little runs of shows that we're going to have here. But it is a lot of me and a lot to get to over this next week-long period. And we have a ton to get to today specifically here on Mic'd Up. We're going to get to the Chiefs pass rush today, which is starting to get hot. And just the right time, we'll look at what individual players are starting to pick it up and what about the pass rush getting better is what's happening and what individual techniques or movements or moments are what are leading to this renewed effort from the pass rush. We got the Big 12 breakdown brought to you by the 23rd Street Brewery with Paul Myerberg at the bottom of this hour. Paul's going to join us to recap what was one hell of a Liberty Bowl between KU and Arkansas. My heart has not recovered slightly emotionally, but more physically. I've always joked about this. I want to get like a little heart rate monitor that I can wear during like KU games or Chiefs games and just see what my heart rate gets up to during these games. Because it feels like I'm taking years off of my life by the stress these games impart on me. But Paul's going to join us. We're going to recap the Liberty Bowl with Paul. We're going to preview the Sugar Bowl between K-State and Alabama with Paul. And also get his thoughts on the college football playoff as well. That's coming up at the bottom of this noon hour. In the 1 o'clock hour, we're going to get to the AFC playoff scenarios because there's very few spots left, but some intriguing positions for the amount of teams we have still left to be able to try and make some noise. We'll look at that as well. We'll hear from the coordinators, Steve Spagnuolo and Eric Bieniemy, the offensive and defensive coordinators. We will hear from them at the bottom of the 1 o'clock hour. Today's list, inspired by my lunch. And because I find that this can be an interesting topic, we're going to get to dipping sauces for your chicken. More specifically, chicken nuggets or chicken tenders. I don't care what side of the fence you're on here. But the classic dipping sauces you enjoy either now or as a kid. It's not the most highbrow topic we've ever done for the list. But my lunch today made me think of it. So that's what we're going to do for our list today. Coming on the 2 o'clock hour, I will recap the Liberty Bowl at the start of the 2 o'clock hour. And there's a very specific reason I want to wait till 2, and I want to get ahead of everything here. I am not waiting until 2 o'clock to recap the Liberty Bowl because KU lost. I don't know how many of those shots we would get taken in on our Big O Tires text line or here in the YouTube comments. But I am waiting till the 2 o'clock hour to recap the Liberty Bowl, or at least my solo recap. I will again talk to Paul about it in the noon hour here. Because when I do it at 2, I can go as long as I want. That's a little bit of inside baseball there. Due to other constraints, some of the other segments have a little bit of a hard out on them. The 2 o'clock top of the 2 does not really have a hard out. So I can go as long as I want to talk about what was a tremendous game for KU, a great comeback for KU, and a great performance by Jalen Daniels. We'll touch on that coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. We have You Did What, which is really just going to be about one particular story that Kyle and I both agree on, and we're going to break down what was a wild event last night in the National Basketball Association. That is what we're all getting to here on a wild edition of Mic'd Up and a jam-packed edition of the show. As always, you can jump in and be a part of the show. And when it's just me, your text, your comments, your questions, everything is even more welcome to get more interaction with just me hanging here with you. You can always text in on the Big O Tires text line at 785-272-9429 or go to YouTube, go to Sports on 580, our YouTube page. Watch the show, jump into the YouTube live comments. You can comment that way and be a part of the show that way as well. But we begin today with the Chiefs pass rush, something that has been the center topic of conversation since, honestly, when the season ended. last year against Cincinnati when the Chiefs faced a Bengals team that the week prior gave up 9 sacks to Tennessee. Cincinnati won the game against the Titans, but they got 9 sacks to the Tennessee Titans. Joe Burrow was smacked around. And then the Chiefs the following game could not get anything done against the Cincinnati Bengals and their banged up offensive line. Since that moment, the pass rush has been a hot topic of conversation. It was our number one storyline going into the offseason. It was our number one storyline coming out of training camp. It was the thing we were watching the entire time, wondering what the Chiefs would do to improve their pass rush. It is what Brett Veach said needed to be done in the offseason. Need to improve the pass rush. Need to be able to get after the quarterback, get to the quarterback. And then this season, at times, it's been very good, and at times, it's been underwhelming. And so it's no surprise that we're here. We are in week 17. It's still weird for me to say week 17 and it not be the end of the year. I'm still not fully used to this whole week 18 exists thing. Granted, I know it's just we're in the second year of it, but still, I'm not used to it. And it still feels weird to say that we're in week 17 and we still have another week to go after this. But this is a Chiefs defense that, overall, the counting stats are there. The Chiefs are tied for first in the league in pressures. They're tied with the Patriots for 147 pressures generated. That's first in the NFL. When it comes to sacks, they're fourth in the NFL with 45. Their blitz percentage isn't as high as it was. Their blitz percentage has dropped dramatically. I'm going to try and do some quick math here. They're 13th in the NFL in blitz percentage. So they're blitzing about the average rate of an average team, maybe just a little bit more, which, as I've always said, when your blitz rate outweighs your pressure rate, which for a chunk of the year, it definitely was for the Chiefs, and it still is, that usually means you're having to blitz to get home. But now what we're seeing as it becomes more balanced with the blitz rate and the pressure rate, as those two things begin to balance themselves out so much more, it usually is more indicative of a team that whose front four is getting home with a lot more regularity. Look at a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who we talk about, getting to the quarterback well, pressuring well. Chiefs and Cowboys have a similar differential between blitz rate and pressure rate. So with that, I wondered more and more because I watched the game against Seattle back on Saturday, and of course I've watched a few other games as well, especially as of late. And everyone's remarking about, the pass rush looks improved, it's looking better. But then we will have, some of you on the Big O Tires text line or the people who send us in tweets, things like that, or I just see it throughout the Twitterverse of Chiefs Kingdom. Comment on, we're top 5 in sacks. We're up there at the top in pressures. Why do we keep acting like there's a pass rush problem? And it always seems to be kind of disjointed. And so what I wanted to do here was first discuss why that seems disjointed and why I think both arguments are valid, but also show and discuss why the pass rush is improving. First things first, I do want to address what seems to be a disjoining between why some people think there's been a pass rush problem this year and why others just point to the numbers and go, why are we saying there's ever been a problem? The Chiefs, by the raw numbers, have done well getting to the quarterback. Again, they're tied for first in pressures generated with the New England Patriots. They're fourth in the league in sacks. Those two things alone mean, yes, the Chiefs have done a good job in the raw totality of numbers getting home. I won't dispute that. You can't dispute that. But what I think it's lost in the wash a little bit, and what leads us to this idea of the pass rush still having issues, or the pass rush being the secret to this team getting to where they want to be at the end of the year, which is hopefully a Super Bowl appearance and, more importantly, raising Lombardi, is consistency. And I think that's been the biggest issue for this Chiefs team this year, is they've had multiple games with 6 sacks. One, there's part of your reason why their sack numbers are so high. They've had some big totaled games. But then they'll have games like against Cincinnati where just no one's getting home and no one's getting around. And I think that's the actual issue here. The counting numbers look good, and that's fine. But when you look at it on a game-by-game basis, the Chiefs have had games where no one shows up. And so the Chiefs' number one issue with their pass rush is, honestly, in my opinion, not the effectiveness of their pass rush. It's the consistency with which that effectiveness shows up. Because they'll have games like they did against, we talk about the Denver game and about how the defense got 28 points. They also got 6 sacks and were hounding Russell Wilson all game. You know, Britt ripping through that late pick because Chris Jones won his matchup so quickly and hit him, causing the duck throw that L'Jarius Sneed caught. You know, you look at them against Seattle. They got home and harassed Geno Smith all game. That's what you want to see. But then you'll see games like, most notably, Cincinnati, where they don't really do anything. And so I think just on the front of it, that's where the disjointing is for the Chiefs and their pass rush, and what I guess more of what, you know, we're perceiving, where the disconnect between perception and reality really is. But then I want to get to the pass rush heating up as of late, and that's what we really discussed. And I want to get to two guys in particular. George Karlaftis and Frank Clark are both heating up at just the right time. Let's look at George Karlaftis first, the rookie. George Karlaftis had half a sack through his first 11 weeks. That's what he had. That's what he was. He had half a sack. In the past 5 games, George Karlaftis has 4 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. Funny enough, he has exactly 1 TFL in 5 straight games. I find that funny. I find that interesting. But he's had exactly 1 tackle for loss in the last 5 games. He's had a sack in 4 of the last 5 games. And yeah, it's not like he had a weird random 3-sack game that's inflated. No, he's had 1 sack in a game for the last 5 games. He's starting to win with regularity. He's starting to learn to be an NFL pass rusher and learning to translate his movements better, learn how to develop a pass rush plan against some of these tackles and play well against these tackles and find ways to get around them, use a combination of power and speed and different moves and variety to get home. He's done such an exceptional job at that. And he has really come on strong. And I think that has been the number one thing. It is the number one thing the Chiefs need to really be able to improve going forward and find a way to do what they want to do. Is they needed George. We talked about this. We talked about the pass rush even when the draft finished and Karlaftis was drafted. That it seemed that part of the Chiefs' plan for their pass rush getting better was George Karlaftis needed to make some sort of an impact as a rookie. And we noted how hard that is for rookie pass rushers. It is not easy as a rookie pass rusher to be successful. It's one of the harder places to get acclimated. And it took him some time. But he has really started to play so well as of late that's really made him impressive and made him come on, that is helping, because the biggest part of the pass rush is complementary pass rush. You need someone winning consistently alongside Chris Jones to lead yourselves to more sacks, more true pressures, more disruptions, because when only one guy wins, there's an easy escape route for a quarterback to get out more often than not. But when 2 guys win, when 3 guys win, even if none of them get home, it disrupts the play so much more because all of the avenues get closed off. That's what's so important. And then also I want to discuss the improved play of Frank Clark, a guy that we've maligned a lot on this show. Jake and I both thought he wanted to even be on the team this year. But through Frank Clark taking a pay cut and taking a contract restructure, things changed. Is Frank Clark putting up elite numbers? No. Is he putting up the numbers of the guy that the Chiefs traded for all those years ago? No. Is he playing some of his best football in Kansas City, though, since he first arrived? Yes. He's playing some of his best football in years this season. He has improved. In the last 3 games, Frank Clark has 2 sacks and 4 tackles for loss amongst the last 3 games. And more importantly, they might just show up as tackles. They might not show up for tackles at all because he doesn't get to make the play. But he's made numerous plays in the running game to keep running game shut down and being a great run defender, which he has been his entire time here in Kansas City. But the fact of the matter that Clark is winning more with regularity. He's starting to really find a groove and find his motor and find a good effort and energy level. Karlaftis and Clark coming on strong is exactly what this team needed. This is the exact thing the Chiefs needed, and they are both really starting to hit a very good stride here as we enter week 17 and move to week 18. The Chiefs shouldn't have much to worry about facing Denver coming up on Sunday and then Vegas next week, in particular because Vegas is starting Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. Because, Josh McDaniels pulled a Brutus on the Caesar of Derek Carr and decided to stab in the back. So you shouldn't have to worry about much these next 2 games. Keep playing consistently, keep playing hard, but this pass rush, unless something drastically changes that slows them down, and I don't think it will, is really starting to find a groove at just the right time. And it's majorly in part, in my opinion, because George Karlaftis and Frank Clark are really starting to turn things up and playing much better consistently on a game-to-game basis than they were earlier in the season and winning more consistently, which makes life easier for the Chiefs' superstar defensive lineman in Chris Jones. We'll see more as the season goes. We'll see more as we get into the playoffs as well. But if Karlaftis and Clark keep this up, I think the Chiefs' pass rush, which on the total stats has played well, will find the consistency that they need to show that statistical production can match the eye test of what we see in these final 2 games. We'll take our first time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, Thursday Night Football's tonight between the Titans and the Cowboys, and the Titans are making a decision that's causing me to scratch my head. We'll get to that coming up next. So, Thursday Night Football is tonight. It is between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are without Ryan Tannehill. He's been ruled out yet again. More importantly, because Tennessee knows no matter what happens to Tennessee in this game, As long as they beat Jacksonville next week, they're in the playoffs. They win the South. This game means nothing to Tennessee. A win or a loss does not change their fortunes in the slightest. Even if they beat Dallas, if they lose to Jacksonville, they're still out. It doesn't matter what happens in this game. What they need to focus on is winning next week. That being said, that's why they're resting Ryan Tannehill. He is not playing. Derrick Henry will also not play in this game. But the Titans are going to start, or expected to start, Josh Dobbs at quarterback instead of Malik Willis. This will be Josh Dobbs' first career NFL start. For those of you who don't know, Josh Dobbs played at Tennessee. Had a nice little career at Tennessee. Was a late round draft pick. Has kind of bounced around the league. He made a start in the preseason this year for Cleveland. Then I believe went to the Lions briefly and was signed by the Titans off the Lions practice squad. Listen, I get Tennessee that you're not taking this game seriously. I get that Tennessee is basically treating this as a preseason game. They're going to do basically nothing. Dallas is going to win by $1 billion. I don't recommend watching this game because it's going to be boring. And it's not going to be fun. But to me, if you think Malik Willis will be anything at all, and this is disregard what we have seen from Malik Willis, which at times I would say this. After watching Malik Willis play the Chiefs, Malik Willis can throw the football. He needs to be refined as a passer, very much so. But he can throw it and at times can make some good throws. And he's a fantastic athlete. I think with time, there maybe is something you can mold from that. But if you're the Titans, and if you think, like I think, that you can mold something out of him, why are you not giving him more game reps? Like, to me, this is an indictment of what you think about Malik Willis. The Titans aren't going to say that. They're going to just, they're doing what they're doing. This could be even more of them being like, we really don't care, so we don't want to risk Malik getting hurt. It's just worth throwing the guys we don't care about onto that football field. I don't know, and I don't care. But to me, this feels like the Titans are saying a lot about what they think about Malik Willis, that in a game where he could use the valuable game reps against Dallas, they're like, nah, we'll throw Josh Dobbs in there because, why not? We just need a random body to throw the football. So let's throw this guy we signed off the Lions practice squad a few weeks ago. Like, it makes no sense to me. It seems very baffling. It's going to make the football game even worse than it was. I feel bad for Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. They deserve much better than being stuck having to call this game tonight. This absolute snooze fest between the Cowboys and the Titans. It's going to be bad. It's going to be a blowout for Dallas. Hammer Dallas on whatever, spread you want to hammer it on. They're going to win. This is baffling by Tennessee. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, Paul Myerberg will join us for the Big 12 breakdown. It is time for what is easily my favorite interview every week. No disrespect to your other guests, but this is just so much fun. It is time for the Big 12 Breakdown, brought to you by our friends at the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Listen, KU football is now done after their bowl game, but we got KU basketball, more importantly, kicking up on Saturday against Oklahoma State. Big 12 conference plays beginning. Hang on by the 23rd Street Brewery. Grab yourself a lunch, grab yourself a drink. Tip-off's at 1 on Saturday. They got great lunch options, great food, great drinks. Go check out our friends at the 23rd Street Brewery in Clinton Parkway in Lawrence. But I am joined by Paul Myerberg, one of the best to do it. He writes for USA Today. You can follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. Paul, first things first. Have you recovered at all from hopefully getting to watch and enjoy what was one of the best Liberty Bowls or best bowl games overall that I at least personally have ever seen? I don't know if you've seen anything much better than that.
Yeah, those last 18 minutes, whatever it was. I mean, just really magical football. And I know we want to talk more about it, but win or lose, it was an outstanding way to end the year for KU because it brought people to the screens and let people see what this group was about all year. And whether or not it kind of ended disappointingly after being 5-0 and finishing with a losing season, I don't really want to focus on that as much as the fact that this was a team that could have quit in the second half of that game and didn't. And like we've seen all year, they just kept at it and kept plugging away. So that was an awesome game. Definitely one of the best Liberty Bowls of all time. And I think if you look back on this postseason in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you will definitely agree that that was the highlight of bowl play was that comeback. Just a really, really great, really fun comeback for that team.
108 combined points between Arkansas and Kansas in triple overtime. And I want to start with talking about the fact that Kansas was able to come back, not only from trailing 38-13 in the third quarter, but they were on 24-7 at the first quarter. Does it surprise you at all that Kansas came back in this game and the way they did it? More so because of the fight Kansas showed in numerous games all year. There were multiple games where Kansas was down 14 points, 20 plus points. They might not all have ended in wins, but they found a way to come back out of holes desperately all year. Were you unsurprised to see that KU kept up that fight this year in the regular season to still have that same fight and grit and scrappiness that they did against Arkansas?
No, definitely not, guys. And and anyone who watched this team all year was not surprised. One of the mantras that we spoke when we talked about KU during the regular season was Baylor, OU, Texas Tech, start fast. You don't want to be a team for KU, given the talent disparity, given the inexperience. You don't want to be digging yourself into early holes. But countless times this year, maybe outside of Texas, every time KU got into a hole, they responded. So as you look forward, this season has been a great year. It's been a magical year. It's been a year that I think if you look back in a few years and they are consistently getting towards 7-8 wins, you look back at this year as like that building block, basement level foundation for KU. But going forward, I think the takeaway for me after this kind of year and specifically that kind of game, the next step for this team is to not just not go down 14-0 early. It's to win these close games and to win games that come down to the wire, like they did against Iowa State, like they did against Duke to a lesser degree. That's the next step for the program. And I think for KU in particular, KU is not like TCU, another team that we've talked about countless times. TCU is coming from a different place. But KU can use these close losses as their off-season talking point. As next year, when we get into a spot, this is how we'll respond. We don't want to have the Liberty Bowl again. We don't want to have Texas Tech again. We don't want to have OU again or TCU again. We want to be a team that when they get pushed into a corner, they're going to respond and then take that next step forward. So that's like, you got to experience that to get better from it. And I think that's really the story of the year. Beyond being 6-7, it was a team that fought. And I think next year and the year after, particularly into 2024, a team that fights, that is more experienced, that has a little bit higher talent level and more depth, they're going to win these games. So win or lose last night or in the Liberty Bowl, that's the point for KU. There's more to be done, and now they know what needs to be done.
KU, luckily, at least has the chance to have so many impact players back from this team to next season. Some guys, may end up transferring. Some guys can choose to go elsewhere and different things, but majority of these guys have the option to be back. One of the main players that is for sure going to be back next season that I do want to get to here is quarterback Jalon Daniels for KU. Begins the year with that 5-0 start with this team, and he just comes out and is playing lights out Heisman level caliber football. Then he gets hurt and misses a large chunk of time. And when he first came back, he didn't look exactly like the Jalon Daniels of old. The shoulder was obviously probably still bothering him a little bit, and then there was just shaking, I guess, the semblance of rust off. And then I think the Liberty Bowl, in my opinion, kind of encapsulates what kind of player Jalon Daniels can be. He threw 2 interceptions all season. He then proceeds to throw 2 interceptions in his first 14 pass attempts against Arkansas, with one of them being a really, in my opinion, bad throw on his second interception of the game. And at that moment, a moment where, there were fans on Twitter making comments about maybe it's time to bring in Jason Bean. He kind of played well while Jalon was down. Jalon Daniels ends up finishing the game with statistically the best quarterback game in the history of Kansas football. 544 yards, 5 touchdown passes. What just would you make of Jalon Daniels' entire season, and what do you think he can do to really spearhead this Kansas football program next year as he comes back as the starting quarterback?
Yeah, and just to echo that point, after the second interception, I obviously didn't go on Twitter and say put in Jason Bean, but I did wonder if at that point, just giving Bean a series or maybe giving him 2 series just to give a spark, give Daniels a chance to reflect was the best move. Obviously, that was an idiotic decision. To leave him in the game was brilliant by Leipold, even if he didn't really second guess it. That encapsulates this season to me, and it encapsulates to a degree what we just talked about with KU, the response, the answer. Old KU, 2018, 2019, 2016, whatever you want to pick, that kind of ugly start for an individual player and for a team will just snowball and it will get ugly. So I love the response. So looking forward to next season for Jalon Daniels. Get in the film room, get in the weight room, get stronger, do what you need to do to stay healthy, because this team is different with him healthy. They're better, they're more explosive, and obviously he's the key to the whole deal. Going into next year, guys, I don't think you're going to see Jalon Daniels in the top 10 on these Heisman projection lists, but I do think he's an all-conference guy. I do think that he's the face of the program for a team that a lot of people are going to be talking about. Not as a 9 or 10 win team, but certainly as a team that maybe if you're really bullish, you have in the just receiving votes in your top 25, a team that is clearly building something. Whatever they build, whatever they do in 2023, it'll be on the back of Jalen Daniels. And you saw against Arkansas that he can do it. Like, he can carry this team into bad situations, good spots. Jalen Daniels is the key to the whole deal. And you have to love the way he responded against Arkansas. I mean, you really do. And I think it answers any questions you had about his viability as a long-term starter.
To kind of put a bow on this Jayhawks season here, Paul, as we're chatting, KU, when you look at them next season, what do you think are the number one things they need to address to get better going into next season? And if they do address those things adequately enough, what do you think should be the expectation level for this Kansas football team going into 2023?
Yeah, to me, it's not that complicated. And I do think, and I'm not too familiar with where they are in terms of their activity, in terms of who's interested and who they're bringing in on officials. Number one, they got to do is get the beef, and they got to get bigger and stronger up front. And that's not just on the offensive line, though they need to increase the depth up front. They need to be better prepared for the wear and tear offensively of Big 12 play. They got to get stronger defensively up front in their front seven. And it's not just about being able to get on the pass rush and harass quarterbacks. It's just about being able to stand up taller against running games. I mean, we saw down the stretch, guys. Beginning with Oklahoma, this run defense cratered. It really cratered. They had one good game, and not surprising, it's the one that they won. So I think going forward, going into next season, whether it's in traditional recruiting from a junior college guy, or whether it's in the traditional transfer portal transfers, they got to get bigger and stronger up front. And if they do that, guys, and this run defense gets into the top 6 in the Big 12 or even the top 7, this is a team that could very easily, in a new look Big 12, get up to 8 wins in the regular season. I'm not setting that as the baseline. The baseline should just be 6 wins, get to a better bowl game, and win that bowl game. But if they can address those few things and get stronger up front, I do think this could be an 8-win team. And I'm not going to shy away from that. I don't think KU should either. They should go into next season saying, if we fix these deficiencies based off what we're bringing back, based off the growth that we've had recently, we can be an 8-win team, and we can be a team that spends some time in the top 25, which they did this year. I think that should be the baseline for success.
I can't lie, Paul. If they got to 8 wins next year, somehow, some way, I would become a very, very happy individual. I'd be pleasantly surprised by what they could do. But no matter what, the fact that we're talking about a Kansas football team, that bowl game and trying to get to a bowl game is moving towards the expectation in just year 3 of Lance Leipold, I think speaks volumes. Let's move to the other team here in the northeast part of the state of Kansas, who has a bowl game coming up on Saturday. The Kansas State Wildcats at a New Year's Six Bowl against Alabama. First things first, Paul, I just got to ask, how do you feel about the Sugar Bowl kicking off at 11 a.m.?
I'm not a huge fan of it, and this is like a bigger deal, bigger picture thing. Just playing games on New Year's Eve in general is just idiotic and stupid. And one thing that it does is that it pushes this game up until a noon start. To me, the Sugar Bowls, even when it's not one of the 4 playoff games, it's an elite New Year's Six game. It should be in prime time. It should be at least at 4:00. So that's disappointing to me. The good news is, and not that Kansas State needs the attention, it's going to get huge eyeballs. They're playing Alabama. It's the lead into TCU. I think the people are going to be paying attention nationally to this team and to this game. Maybe if more so for Alabama, it doesn't matter. So I think Kansas State has a remarkably great opportunity. It's a test. And it's a test that Kansas State has not faced this year or in a very long time. But with that test, just like with TCU, that test comes with tremendous opportunity. I don't even want to think they beat Alabama, and we get a lot of hype for this team on those early top 25 lists. I would not be surprised if they win this game if you see some folks put them in the top 10.
That would be tremendous for K-State if they could get to that point, just to even kind of continue this just miraculous run that they are on. Will Howard is going to be set to start at quarterback. Chris Clemens said that's not going to change one bit. Will Howard is their starting quarterback. But Adrian Martinez is getting a lot of work in ball practice. He seems to be like he'll be good to go if he's needed to be used at all in the matchup against Alabama. With that in mind, would you think K-State should design some packages for Adrian Martinez to be used? And if so, do you think that that is a successful avenue for K-State to try and do, to maybe just offer a bit of a different look to Alabama to try and, throw off Nick Saban's Crimson Tide?
I'm always wary of the idea of setting up set packages, because that can become predictable and repetitive. And certainly Alabama, even if they're going to be caught on their heels at first because you don't know what to expect from Adrian Martinez, I think eventually they're going to catch on. So I would shy away from that. But what I would definitely not do is play Will Howard for 3 snaps or 3 series rather, and then bring Adrian out in the second quarter for an entire series. I don't like that. I think that ruins the flow. It ruins the tempo for your offense. What I'd like to see them do is put him in shotgun or put him into a position where there's going to be a zone read kind of ploy for the defense, and let Adrian Martinez keep the ball and be a hammer. I don't want to see Adrian Martinez throw the football, and that's no disrespect to him. He had a nice season. He was fine, but Will Howard has taken this offense to a different level. What I would like to see is Martinez coming into a position where he's going to run the ball or at least have a run-pass option and keep Alabama on their heels. Don't be predictable. Don't just run the ball every time. But if used correctly, yeah, I think he can loosen up that defense and give Will Howard and Deuce Vaughn a little bit more breathing room. But they got to be smart about it. Don't overuse him. Use him when he's necessary. Use him when he's needed, maybe in the red zone or near the goal line. But don't stress it. Well, this is Will Howard's team. This is Will Howard's program. He's got to be the starting quarterback. He's got to be the dude, win or lose. Because it's not just about this game. It's about 2023. And you built to 2023 with your bowl game. Win or lose, this is all about Will Howard. Adrian can be a supplementary or complementary piece, but he can't be the piece.
Paul Myerberg is our guest, college football writer for USA Today here on the Big 12 Breakdown, brought to you by the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Go check them out at Clinton Parkway in Lawrence. All right, Paul, we're not going to get to a specific pick for you just yet, but I just want to know, what do you think is the avenue for Kansas State to win this game? What does Kansas State need to do to beat Alabama? Because this is not an Alabama with a bunch of opt-outs and transfers right now. This is a fairly full-strength Alabama team. What do the Wildcats need to do to pull off a win down in New Orleans?
Yeah, I can think of 2 things on both sides of the ball. I think, number one, defensively, it is vital. It's absolutely vital that Bryce Young moves his feet. It's absolutely vital. If he has a clean pocket, you look at the numbers, you look at the PSF, you look at his stats on third down. When he's clean, he's the best quarterback in the country. It's not even close. If he has time and he can set his feet, he's going to pick Kansas State apart, because he's done it to teams, with all due respect to Kansas State, with more talent on the back end. So they got to make him move. They got to have him get happy feet, and I think that's the ultimate key to winning in this game. On the other side of the ball, look, don't change who you are. Keep an eye on Will Anderson. I think Will Anderson is any guy that they can put off the edge. Those are the kind of dudes that you need to watch out for. But I do think that if you hammer Kansas, if you hammer Alabama over and over again, I do think that you could eventually wear them down. I know that's a dumb thing to say, and it sounds ridiculous, but going straight at Alabama, I think, is the best key for Kansas State. Don't try to be silly. Don't try to be different. Be yourself. Play a 4-quarter game, and eventually try to wear them down. I think they can do that and win a close game if Alabama doesn't have their heads in it from the start. But it's going to be a test, I think, on both sides of the ball. It's about controlling the line of scrimmage. Kansas State does that well. They can do that against Alabama to a degree and win a close one. But if they don't do either thing, and if Bryce Young's clean in particular, I think Alabama could end up putting up 35, 38 points. And in that case, the Wildcats have really no shot.
On the Alabama side of things here, real quick, Paul, Bryce Young and Will Anderson, of course, are playing in this game. Were you surprised when they announced they were going to play here in the Sugar Bowl? Because, I mean, Bryce Young is the potential number 1 overall pick coming up in the NFL draft. Will Anderson's going to be drafted fairly highly as well. Were you surprised that both of them decided to play in this game in kind of an era of top 10 NFL draft talent guys? Unless they're playing for a title, they usually just kind of sit these things out.
Yeah, I'm shocked, guys. I just got to be honest. I'm shocked they're both playing. I'm shocked that one of them is playing, let alone both. We've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, this is an opportunity for guys who are established and are in the NFL and the top ends of the NFL draft, about to become millionaires. It's understandable for them to take a step back and not play in this game. It speaks to the culture at Alabama. I think it speaks to them individually. But, yeah, I am shocked at it. I really did not think when we spoke a couple weeks ago that they would play in this game. It brings a new wrinkle to things. But it also does this. If they lose this game, they can't say they didn't care. And I think that's something very powerful to keep in mind. Alabama, when they lose these kind of games, or any SEC team loses this kind of game, it's because they didn't care, they didn't have their best guys. You can't use that as an excuse. It makes it harder on Kansas State, but it also makes the potential payoff that much greater.
I'm fully with you. I told this to Jake the other day. I think playing the SEC in bowl games is sometimes a lose because if you beat them, well, their fan base is just going to tell you, well, they didn't care about the game and they didn't have their best players, so the win doesn't really count. But then if you lose to them, then you get to listen to the SEC tell you how much greater than you that they are. So to me, it's a double-edged sword when you play the SEC in a bowl game here. All right, Paul, my final two questions, my two for the road for you. K-State, Alabama, the Sugar Bowl. I got to know, what is your pick? Who walks out of New Orleans the Sugar Bowl champion?
I think it's going to be Alabama. I do think that there is a talent gap here that if Alabama's focused, it's going to be really hard for Kansas State to overcome. My only fear for Kansas State is, like we spoke about with KU, that things go poorly early and Alabama just kind of puts their foot down. That's a possibility. If they can be in this game in the third quarter, bring it into the fourth quarter, this is a tough group led by a tough coach, tough coaching staff, tough scheme. They are in a spot where they could grind out a win. The safe pick is Alabama. I hate to hedge it by saying if Alabama's up early, it's going to get blown out. But if it's close at halftime, I think you're looking at a 7 or 10 point game for Alabama. Kansas State can hang with them. They really can because they are physically that tough. If it's 14-0 early, though, I think you can say all bets are off. It could get very out of hand.
All right, Paul, my final question for you is essentially a two-parter, really. College football playoff, the college football semifinals are Saturday as well. TCU, Michigan, Georgia, and Ohio State. Who do you think wins each semifinal matchup? And so basically, who's going to be playing for the national title in a couple weeks, and then who walks out as the national champion this year?
I think it's going to be Georgia for starters against Ohio State. Ohio State is explosive. They can take advantage of some deficiencies Georgia has on the back end. But Georgia, in a heightened degree like Kansas State, will just wear you down. And I think eventually Georgia will pull away, win by 10 or 14 points. It'll probably be more competitive than that. I have a hard time seeing Ohio State win the game. Similarly with TCU and Michigan, Michigan is a tougher team. They're deeper. They're stronger. TCU, if they give the ball to Max Duggan time and time again, they might be able to gut out extended drives and keep Michigan on the sideline. But eventually, that's a lot of weight for them to hold up. I think Michigan similarly wins by 14 points. Guys, I'm going to shock you. I think Michigan wins the national championship. I thought a lot about this back in early December when I was doing my bowl picks. I think it's Michigan's year. Georgia's excellent. Michigan seems a little bit like a team of destiny. So I think Georgia, Michigan, shocking that the Big Ten would beat the SEC, but I think Michigan this year pulls it off, wins a very close one for the national championship.
Hey, all I know is that Georgia, Michigan, if that ends up being our national title match, that will be a hell of a very physical football game and will be one that I think all the fans watching will feel some of the hits being laid out in that game. Paul Myerberg was our guest, one of the best writers out there, works for USA Today. Paul, thank you so much. Enjoy hopefully a very fun, full weekend of college football, and we'll talk to you next week.
Great. Thank you, guys. Talk to you soon.
And that is Paul Myerberg of USA Today for the Big 12 Breakdown, brought to you by the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. You can find them at Clint Parkway in Lawrence. I'm with Paul. I think it'll be Georgia, Michigan for the national title. Listen, I would love to see TCU beat Michigan and TCU get to play for a national title. I love to see that. I think that'd be entertaining. That being said, Georgia and Michigan just play a different level of football than everybody else does. They play a different brand of football, and I think the way Paul worded is the absolute best. They're just two teams that wear you down with their size and their physicality. And I think that'll be the thing. So we'll eventually get Georgia, Michigan. We'll discuss that more and do a little bit of preview of that coming up next week once we know what the national title will be. And Juke will be back for the national title game on January 9th. Him and I will preview it that day on that edition show where it happens that evening. For the Sugar Bowl, I'll break down the Sugar Bowl more tomorrow, and I will give you my official pick tomorrow. A little tease here in the biz. But overall, I think it'll be a close game. It's going to be a tough game for Kansas State, but there is an avenue where they can get the win and pull off one of the biggest wins in Kansas State football history by beating a fully stocked Alabama team. It is not going to be easy. It is going to be incredibly difficult. But I think there is an avenue where Kansas State can get a win. I'll break that down more for you tomorrow, coming up on tomorrow's show as we preview the Sugar Bowl. But I think an avenue exists for the Wildcats to get a victory. That'll do it for the noon hour here on Mic'd Up. Coming up at the 1 o'clock hour, we're going to look at the AFC playoff scenarios and look at just what will happen with that final wildcard spot. All that coming up here on Mic'd Up. Welcome into hour number 2 of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster here with you, riding solo for today, for tomorrow, not for Monday, because we don't have a show Monday. Spoiler alert, we will not have a show on Monday. We're observing the New Year's Day holiday, as well most. It's not going to be here. It's going to be just me Tuesday, and then Wednesday, and then Thursday, and Friday. Yeah. For the next 6 shows, it will just be me and at times my good counterpart, Kyle Manthe, helping me out. That'll be the crew for the next 6 shows as Jake is on vacation. A much-deserved vacation for Jake. Guy needs some time off. He's going to be able to relax, chill out. Hopefully chill out. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if Jake actually knows how to calm down and relax. Who knows? But nonetheless, it is a little bit of a different flavor of the show coming up for the next 6 editions of Mic'd Up. I want to thank Paul Myerberg for joining me at the bottom of the noon hours. We chatted a little bit of college football, so it was a great time to chat with Paul. It was a great time. We'll chat with him next week as well to recap the Sugar Bowl for K-State, as well as look at what the semifinals were for college football playoff. And then we'll preview the college football national championship game coming up on January 9th. Coming up here in the 1 o'clock hour of Mike Depp. We're going to lead off looking at the AFC playoff race. There's only 2 spots left. Only one of them is a wild card. We'll break down the scenarios a little bit and look at kind of who the Chiefs might want to be in, because the Chiefs might be a 2 seed, which means they have to play somebody. You kind of want to get a vibe of what teams are most dangerous at different spots. We'll look at that coming up here in the 1 o'clock hour. Everyone loves the list. Our best dipping sauce is inspired by the fact that I grabbed some good old chicken nuggets from Wendy's today. Very delicious. I recommend them. It's not a plug or anything. It's just I had a good lunch, and I would like everybody else to have a good lunch. Inspired by that, Kyle and I are going to give you our best dipping sauces. It's not our most highbrow topic we've ever done on this show, but you know what? Everyone should enjoy a good dipping sauce with some chicken tenders, chicken nuggets, whatever you want to call them. Everyone should enjoy that. Also, I'm not limiting it to just those. If it's what you dip your celery into, if you're one of those celery people, I think people dip celery into stuff. I don't know. I don't eat celery. We're not doing chip dips. We've moved past chip dips. But just anything, you dip an item into to dip and eat. We're kind of expanding it to that kind of being the limit. That's what there's going to be for Everyone Loves the List today. And then we'll wrap up at the bottom of this hour here from Eric Bieniemy and Steve Spagnuolo as well. Again, coming up at the 2 o'clock hour, I'll recap the Liberty Bowl, which was an amazing game full of highs and lows, and definitely took at least a couple more years off of my life. We'll have You Did What, which normally is more of a back and forth or a little bit random, but Kyle and I kind of agreed on what the You Did What for today was, and we're going to get into one of the wilder things we've ever seen coming out of the NBA last night. And then we'll look at the Chiefs upgrading and how much their pass rate is coming together at about 2 o'clock hour as well. If you want to join in on the action and the conversation, you can join in 2 ways. First, on our Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. Or you can also hop in on the comments of our YouTube live stream here. Just go to Sports on 580 on YouTube or on our 580 WIBW website. You'll be able to see the show. You can comment on the live section and jump in the comments on the live stream as well. Those are the 2 big ways to interact with the show. You can also send us a tweet at SportsOn580. Another way to interact with myself here on the show. And then, of course, on 580 Sports Talk, those are ways to interact with Brendan and Dan as well. But to kick off the 1 o'clock hour here on Mic'd Up, the AFC playoff teams are all but decided. There are 7 playoff spots every year. There's the 4 division winners and now the 3 wild cards. I do so much hate that we have 3 wild cards. That 7th wild card spot is usually just a travesty of a game and a travesty of a team getting to be into the playoffs. But 5 of the 7, I can do math, I promise. 5 of the 7 spots in the AFC are decided. The Bills are in. The Chiefs are in. The Bengals are in. The Ravens are in. The Chargers are in. The Chargers have clinched a wild card berth only because the Chiefs have already clinched the division. The Bills have clinched their division. They will represent the AFC East as the best team out of the AFC East. The Bengals and Ravens have each clinched a spot, though where they will end up has not been decided because the AFC North is still up for grabs. That will be decided in Week 18 between the Ravens and the Bengals. The only way that doesn't matter, and I will pull up the ESPN playoff machine. I will also say, if you do want to do the same thing I'm doing and just kind of play around with playoff scenarios, ESPN.com has what they do call their playoff machine, and it lets you basically play around with if what team won what game, what teams we get into the playoffs. It's very fun to mess with this time of year. You heard me messing with it yesterday, messing with it now. But let's say the Steelers beat the Ravens this week. The Bengals beat the Bills. Then next week, the Ravens cannot win the division. If the Ravens want to win the division, they must beat the Steelers this week. And the Bengals would have to beat the Buffalo Bills. If the Steelers beat the Ravens and the Bills beat the Bengals, then Week 18's match between the Ravens and Bengals is still winner take all for the division title. Now, the Ravens will probably beat the Steelers, and Bengals and Bills is whatever. But let's say the Ravens beat the Steelers, the Bills beat the Bengals. The Bengals can still win the division by beating Baltimore. So there's only one way that the game between the Ravens and the Bengals does not become a winner-take-all game, and that is if both the Steelers win this week, beating the Ravens, and the Bengals beat the Bills. So to make that clear, a lot of complicated stuff happening here. That's what this entire thing is going to be about here right now. That is what's happening with the AFC North. The AFC South is still up for grabs as well, as the Jaguars and Titans neither have even clinched a playoff spot. The simplicity of that one is coming in Week 18 when the Jags play the Titans, winner wins the South, even if the Titans lose to the Cowboys tonight, which they probably will. The Jags could also, I believe, still lose and that not matter as well. So we just keep messing around with our good old friend, the playoff machine here. Jags play the Texans. If the Texans win and Cowboys win, and then the Jags win their final matchup, and we touch it here, they win the division, whereas if the Titans beat the game, the Titans win the division. Simple, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. That is it for the final two division races that are still left open. The wild card is where things get interesting. There's only one wild card spot left open because one of those wild card spots will go to the second place finisher of the AFC North, either the Bengals or the Ravens. For that final wild card spot, there are technically 6 teams eligible. The Titans and Jags get tricky. They both kind of count, but they also both kind of don't count because if they don't win the division, that team is really not going to ever get in based on tiebreakers and other things. The battle and also the Raiders are also still technically alive. I know Brendan and Dan remarked on a little bit on 580 Sports Talk yesterday. And even Jake and I discussed a little bit with Derek Carr being benched. The Raiders would need about 30 different things to fall their way to get in, but they are still technically alive. The battle is really between the Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots, the New York Jets, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're your 4 likely teams to get that spot in that final spot. The Dolphins are 8-7. They currently hold that 7th wildcard spot. The Patriots, Jets, and Steelers are all 7-8. These are the scenarios to figure it out. For Miami, win your final 2 games and you're in. For the Patriots, win your final 2 and you're in. For the Jets, win your final 2 and you're in. The problem is they all basically play each other. Coming up this week in Week 17, the Dolphins and Patriots go at it. Jets play the Seahawks. So Dolphins and Patriots, one of them is going to knock out the other probably in this matchup. And then in Week 18, Jets play the Dolphins. So Miami gets in if they win their 2 and they're in, and they have probably the best chance. However, this is where things get the most tricky. If the Jets, Patriots, and Dolphins all tie at 8-9, so if the Patriots and Jets go 1-1 of these final 2 weeks, Miami loses their next 2. So basically, they're the 1 wins that the Jets and Patriots get. And they're all 8-9. Then New England gets in. If the Jets and Miami tie at 9-8, which quite simply means Miami probably beats New England, and then the Jets win their game as well, and the Jets beat the Dolphins in Week 18, the Jets get it. I know, really complicated, really annoying. And then for the Pittsburgh Steelers, it is very simple. They need the 3 AFC East teams to tie at 8-9, and then they get in at 9-8 if they win their final 2 games against the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. I throw a lot at you. I do apologize for that, but those are the various scenarios for those 4 teams to get in. We'll know more, especially going into Week 18, but those are the 4 teams essentially still alive. If you're curious about Las Vegas, they would need the 4 teams above them to all finish at 8-9, and then they would win the tiebreaker. And then it's also worth noting, if those 4 teams all finish 8-9 and the Jags finish 8-9 and the Titans win the division, then the Jags jump over the Raiders and the Jags become the final playoff team. Very confusing, very annoying. But outside of me reading a bunch of complicated scenarios at you, here's the more important part to this. And it comes down to seeding, positioning, and who you want to see. Personally, if you are the Chiefs and you are assuming you're going to get the 1 seed, basically if you think Cincinnati can win Monday night and you can win out, then you would get the number 1 seed and the bye. If that's the reality we live in, Chiefs fans, you should be rooting for the Tennessee Titans 9 ways to Sunday to beat the Jaguars in Week 18. Because personally, I would say you would want to face the Titans over the Jags. Because as I've always said, I'd rather face a team that can't score but has a good defense than a team that might have a lower level defense, but they can at least put up points. You want to face the team that just can't score. Because the Chiefs offense will find a way to score on any defense. They've shown that. So you want to face a team that's going to have harder time scoring their own points, which are the Tennessee Titans. So if you think the Chiefs are going to get the 1 seed, you really would like the Titans to beat the Jags, because then you're more than likely, if everything goes chalk, you as the 1 seed would face the Titans at Arrowhead Stadium as the 4 seed in the divisional round. That is what you hope. Now, if the Bills and Chiefs went out and the Chiefs finishes the 2 seed, well, at that point, you need to decide who you want to face as your 7. Personally, the Jets, I think, would be the best option because they're the most offensively challenged again. But even if you end up matching with Miami as your 7th seed, they might not have Tua Tagovailoa. I hope they don't. Not for the fact that I want, that's even from a football perspective. That's I want Tua to put his health above anything else, and don't think he needs to risk his health anymore this season. But among those teams you could play, the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Jets, none of them should really scare you as a Chiefs fan, because none of them really. Miami's the best at scoring, but they might not have their quarterback that's made them so potent trying to get the ball to their talented wide receivers. Plus, the offense has kind of been figured out a little bit. And their defense is kind of, middle of the road. Whereas you're facing the Patriots, the Jets, they can't score, but at least their defenses play well. And then if you play Pittsburgh, you can beat Kenny Pickett. So there's not a lot of avenues where you're worried for the Chiefs about who you would play up until later rounds, which swings back into the idea of the golden scenario is the Bengals and Bills are the 2 seed and the 3 seed. Because, again, as long as everything kind of plays out kind of chalky and nothing super drastically weird happens, the 2 and the 3 will play each other. Or if you're really happy, one of them gets knocked out by a wildcard team. That's even better. Because then they beat each other up, they take out one of each other, and then at worst, you have to only play one of them in your path to the Super Bowl. We'll break out more playoff scenarios coming up next week when we go into week 18, and everything will be really much more crystallized on what can happen and what situations will come up for the Chiefs. And of course, we'll know more because we'll know the result of this Bengals and Bills matchup. But if you can get the golden matchup of Bengals 2, Bills 3, then that really sets you up, because then you only have to beat one of those 2 teams going into the AFC Championship game that you would like to get to, that you would be hosting yet again, versus having to beat them both in your path to the playoffs. We'll see more as we go. The AFC playoff picture is starting to crystallize a little bit here, but there's just a few teams and things left to go. Before we take a timeout here, I do want to make note of some news that broke just essentially in the past few minutes or so. Soccer great Pele has passed away. He passed away at the age of 82. I'm not going to pretend I was ever the biggest soccer guy. I've grown into it more the past couple years or so. But it doesn't take anyone to really, it doesn't take a lot of high level knowledge of the game to know that Pele was the first great soccer player and is honestly considered by most still the greatest of all time. This isn't a time, in my opinion, to have the Pele Messi debate. That can be had at a much different time. But all I can say is Pele revolutionized the game of soccer. His entire life story was just amazing, and where he rose himself to through his athletic accomplishments and the type of person and human being that he was, and the ambassador for the game of soccer that he was, is just so important and so amazing. And so it is sad to see him pass away. It is always sad to see a legend go. But the game that we know and the level that it achieves to, and the recognition that it gets, a large part of the international flavor of soccer and the way things have been elevated and the history of the game is all tied into the greatness that was Pele. So rest in peace to the absolute legend that was Pele. He passed away just today, just a few moments ago. It was announced at the age of 82. We'll take a time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, everyone loves the list here on Mic'd Up. Welcome back into Mic'd Up. It is time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Kyle Manthe joining me for this one. Our list today, Kyle, best dipping sauces. And I want to clarify, because I think this should have been clarified at the tippity top. This doesn't just have to be the sauces we're dipping chicken nuggets and chicken tenders into. If you have other things you're dipping in some sauce, we can get creative. Just no chip dip. Jake and I did that. The dipping sauce and chip dip are two different things. This needs to be a sauce in some level, not to get too particular. Not a highbrow topic today, but a fun one in my opinion. Kyle, what's your number 4 dipping sauce?
Well, when I crafted my list, I centered it around chicken nuggets. So I'll
Smart
start
man.
number 4, maybe not associated with chicken nuggets, but I'll take ketchup to dip in your chicken nuggets.
Standard, basic.
Maybe not the most traditional, but
you know what? You know what, Kyle? That's not a flashy pick, but I think for most people it's sold. I'm not a ketchup guy. I don't enjoy the condiment that is ketchup. I think it's just not something I do, but I think that's a very standard pick and a very safe pick. I respect it. Number 4 for me, it's 4 because I use it so sparingly. It is sweet and sour sauce. Sweet and sour sauce is good. It's simple. It's basic. But it's not a common, often sauce I use, but it's a good one.
that's a good choice. I'm right in agreement with you. Number there, sweet and sour sauce. That's my number 3.
Number 3 for me, very simple. It's the classic barbecue sauce. Barbecue sauce is always good. Barbecue sauce is always a good choice. I go with barbecue sauce at number 3. And now, if we want to get specific on types of sauce, that I think gets a little bit of a sticky debate there. But no matter what, give me a good barbecue sauce and I'm happy.
I agree with everything you said, and I'm interested to see where our list is going to break up because barbecue sauce is my number 2. So maybe we're just going to keep going back and forth with the same ones here. But barbecue sauce is 2 for me.
We very much might. Depends on where we go on some of this here. The best part is there's a level of a difference that has to exist here. Number 2 for me, honey mustard. Honey mustard is a top tier sauce option. Fantastic. I had a recipe. I learned how to make my own one time, so I still do that now and then. Very delicious. Very good. Honey mustard, an excellent sauce.
Okay, I'm going to break away because this is my list. Number 1, I want no sauce. I'm just going to eat the chicken nuggets. That's all I want, just the nuggets.
I respect the move so heavily and so hard because that has huge Jake LeBon energy to it. I before I get to my number 1, I can't remember what the list was. There's a list that Jake and I did, and Jake didn't believe in doing it. So his number 1 was just, you don't have it. You don't do it. It doesn't exist. And I'm like, Jake, that's not how this is done. But either way, so I very much respect the move by Kyle to go with just the simple, I'm not doing it. It's just not happening. I'm not going to do it at all for it. Number 1 for me, though, very simple. It's some good old buffalo sauce. Buffalo is fantastic. It's excellent. Adds a good amount of flavor. Depending on where you go, can add some heat as well. But buffalo is easily top tier, tippity top, number 1 with a bullet, the best dipping sauce out there. I want to thank everyone here on the Big O Tires text line and inside our YouTube comments for getting in their thoughts on the list today. I'll get to some of those after we come out of the next timeout and of the next break. Coming up here on my double ticket timeout, we'll hear from the coordinators coming up next. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Some very fun text in from the Big O Tires text line about our dipping sauce debate. We have a text from the 785 that their list was honey mustard, sweet and sour, teriyaki, and ranch. I'll open and tell you, text, before I get to your comment that made me laugh really hard and made you laugh as well. Ranch isn't good. It's my most anti-Midwestern take, I think, because ranch is apparently a Midwest thing. Ranch isn't good. It's not a good sauce. It's not good to put on your salads. It's not good to dip things in. Ranch isn't good. Come at me if you want. Ranch ain't good. But that same text for the 785 did say, if they hear ketchup, I'm heading up Huntoon Hill. And then they immediately said, on my way, when Kyle said ketchup. That Twitch texted and sent some laughing emojis. That made me laugh too, texter. I want to thank you so much for bringing that up as well. Also, another text from the 75 said, if ranch and buffalo sauce mixed together aren't on the list, it's a bust. Buffalo is good. Don't taint it by adding ranch. You make buffalo worse by adding ranch. Because ranch is not good. I'm glad I got to get that take in here. I just had to bring it up here. And then on our YouTube comments, our good friend Barbara brought up white gravy. That's a good call that I did not think about. Chicken dipped in gravy or chicken smothered in white gravy. Best thing on this planet. Guaranteed. White gravy superior to brown gravy based on taste and everything else. It's fantastic. And white gravy on chicken is amazing. And then our good friend Vance from the YouTube comments says, how about the Frosty as a dip with my fries? I've never done the fries dipped in the Frosty. I had Wendy's for lunch today. I did not get a Frosty with my lunch. But I've never done the fries dipped in the Frosty. It's apparently a big thing. Not my thing. Not a thing that I probably would really ever do. But apparently that is a thing that people like to do. And you know what? More power to you. I don't judge. I'm a low judging type of person. Do what you want to do. But I've never done the frosted fries, but I will judge. I will just wrap this all up with the same comment I made earlier. Ranch isn't good. I will use this platform at this moment to tell you ranch isn't good. It's overrated. It's not as good as you all think. Get it out of here. I'm running the show for 6 days. I can make all my takes be known now. It's going to make some of you want Jake back. Might make some of you never want Jake back. I don't know. But I get to pop them off and have to worry about Jake counteracting me with whatever I might end up saying. I don't have a good segue for this next part, so we're just going to hear from the coordinators now. First off, we heard from defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. He met with the media. Here's what Spags had to say earlier today.
Listen, well into Denver. Hope everybody had a happy holiday. I don't have much, as normal, I don't really have much to say. I'm going to let you guys roll with the questions.
What kind of went into the decision to ask Legarius to travel with
Yeah. He did a good job, I really thought. And Dave and I and Donald really felt that. I mean, LJ's a competitor, and so isn't 14. And we felt like we needed to do that to kind of get us going. I thought he did a really good job all game. He got the one on the sideline, and we really safety probably should have been over there a little bit sooner. Probably shouldn't even have had that one. And LJ had a contested one on him, a little shorter curl. But I thought the guys did a really good job as a group, making 14 for them a focus and making sure he didn't wreck the game on them. And I think they did a pretty good job.
You kind of resisted that in the past.
Not really. Oh, you mean flipping guys? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, part of that goes into like in years past. Well, we've had Travarius and Breland outside. You know, I mean, it goes into who we have and what we feel like the matchups are. But I wouldn't say I've never resisted it. I mean, we've done it, and I thought it was a good week to do that. Yeah.
What was it about this week that made it good to do
that? Well, when Lockett got hurt, you know, that gave him really the one main guy. So that was one of the bigger reasons. I'm not saying we wouldn't have done it anyway, but that was probably one of the main reasons.
How much did you need to see that maybe ahead of the postseason that can offer you an opportunity because you have other receivers you're going to see? I know you could go week by week, but down the line when you enter the postseason, you can do this maybe against the Diggs and the
Well, we'll see. Again, like even Denver this week's got two really good ones. You know, so you got to make a decision there. It's just all about the team that you're facing and what they have and what are the other matchups when you do that. What problems the offense presents with, do they move that guy around? Like last week, 14 didn't move around very much. If you have a player that's the same caliber and they're always moving them, you kind of lose it doesn't, you kind of lose that a little bit. But so there's always a lot of things going into it.
Sorry about that.
when you look at your coaching career, you've been around some very prolific and productive linebackers. Jeremiah Trotter in Philly, Laurinaitis in St. Louis, and now you've got Nick Bolton. Not asking you to compare them, but like, what are some of the similarities that you see?
Yeah, like Antonio Pierce is another one we had in New York. The first thing that jumps out is the football intelligence. The second thing that jumps out is the football instincts. In some ways, one and the same, but Nick has a tremendous feel for the game. There's a lot of times that it's drawn up a certain way going into the week, and when it changes on him really quick, he can adjust. The other thing he's really good at is in-game coming over and saying, I think we should do this or maybe not do that because of this or because of what they're doing or what the quarterback's saying. That's valuable. And all those other guys that you're talking about used to do the same thing. It's huge.
What do you think went into this late season production for George to finally get home a bunch of times? And it seems like he's
I don't know if I have an answer or secret to that, except that I know that throughout the beginning when we didn't feel like he had, I mean, everybody looks at is sacks, right? And when it wasn't happening, Joe and I both felt that there were a number of times when he was almost right there, or he missed one because maybe he didn't sink his hips. Like I think there's a few in there that he missed that he could have had. And now I think he's learning that, and maybe the speed of the game, he's getting used to it, and he's getting confident. So I hope that continues. That helps us.
This is a pretty quick turnaround to play the same team again, but a lot of stuff has happened there.
Yeah.
Coach mentioned to us yesterday, you got to be ready for about anything because you don't really have a track record for what they're going to be like.
Yeah.
What sort of things are you preparing for with the Broncos this week?
Well, Coach is right. Sometimes it can make it a little bit more challenging because you don't know what the changes are going to be. Everybody needs a game to see what the new head coach is going to do. The coordinator not changing, we're looking for some probably continuity there or some similarity between the last time we played him this time. But we just got to be ready for anything. I mean, in a lot of ways, we make it more about what we're doing and what we should do and how we should execute, and making sure that from the chin to the hairline, we execute things the way we need to do, and then continue to play fast. I mean, I thought our guys played fast, tackled better. To me, that's as important as who you're playing. So whatever they throw at us in this particular week that we may not have seen because it is a new regime, so to speak, we got to be ready for it.
Steve, since Frank's been here, this appears to be the year the most that he's sort of been a mentor for somebody younger at his position, obviously with George.
Yeah.
I just wondered what you've learned about Frank, seeing him go through that while also trying to obviously be a productive player himself. Yeah,
he takes that pretty seriously, I think, in kind of mentoring or, at the point we're at in the season right now, being the veteran that's kind of been through it, what to expect, how we need to operate. He's been really good that way. He's been vocal that way. Joe tells me that he's been really good in the D-line meetings with that. Studying film, getting ready for this opponent. I know Frank has pointed out some things. Real valuable to have vets on your team that have been through what we're in the middle of and hopefully going to go through going forward. I think it's huge, especially when you have as many young guys as we do.
When you faced the Broncos 3 weeks ago, Russell Wilson rushed for a season high. Is that a big focus stopping him again this week?
Yeah, he's still a quality quarterback in my opinion. And he hurt us with his feet a number of times. We can't allow that to happen. I think on most of those, the coverage on the back end was really good. He's smart enough to know he's going to get something with his feet, and he did that. I hope that doesn't happen again, but that has been a huge focus. Yeah.
With Karlaftis, it seems like you can go back to OTAs, getting his hands in the passing lane, batting passes.
Yeah, he's had I don't know where he is and all that, but I know he's had a bunch of them. There was one, I think it was this past game. There was one real early in a game. I think it was this game that if he doesn't do that, it was this past game. The coverage on the outside was a little loose. I think it would have been a first down. I thought he saved us on that. But good pass rushers not only put pressure on the quarterback, but they have a timing in their brain of when to put their hands up when they know the quarterback's going to release it. I think that's a natural thing, and George obviously has a good knack for that.
Coach, can you talk about the play of your safeties? Justin Reed had a couple of big tackles in that game against Seattle, and then obviously Juan with the interceptions. Yeah. Those guys have been playing pretty well for the last. They have, but they kind of there's some continuity there. I think Justin and Juan are feeling better together. The whole secondary, the linebackers together. We're spending a little bit more extra time with the two groups together because I think that's important this time of the season. And unfortunately for Juan, he had that other interception that got taken away, but LJ kind of got a little
little feisty on that. And it was legit. He was doing it the whole game, which was really good. And sometimes you miss and you get called. But yeah, Juan and Justin, I thought they did a nice job.
That was Steve Spagnuolo speaking earlier on today. Biggest and one of the things I wanted to note out of that before we get to Eric Bieniemy here is, him discussing a little bit on the pass rushers getting their hands up and knocking balls down. It's just so impressive, and discussing about, how Joe Cullen kind of teaches that a little bit, and how they learn about different things going forward and all those things like that. But it's just that defensive line room and the length that they have and their ability to get their hands up, being told, if you're not going to get there, just get your hands up, play it well. It's always impressive, and so that's a nice thing to see out of the defensive line. Eric Bieniemy also spoke to the media earlier today. Here's what the Chiefs' offensive coordinator had to say.
Good afternoon. Hopefully everyone had a beautiful Christmas. Hopefully everyone celebrated the holiday with a nice one, a special friend, family, or whoever. Feels good coming off a victory as well. I think our guys did a heck of a job of finding a way to finish the game. The thing that we're focused on right now is making sure that we're cleaning up all the little things moving forward. So fundamentally, we can play our best ball going into the playoffs. With that said, I'm all ears.
Coach, how valuable has Jerick McKinnon been to you this year and all he's done in recent weeks?
Jerick has been very valuable. Obviously, it's always good, especially, for Pat, when he's looking downfield to make that big play. And then if nothing's there, he has an opportunity to dump it off to Jerick. Jerick's doing a great job, not only as a receiver, he's doing a great job in pass protection, picking up the necessary blitz when they're coming. On top of that, he's doing a heck of a job in the run game. And then something that doesn't get talked about enough, and I know I keep discussing it, is his leadership. He provides outstanding leadership in that room to those guys. And he's just like having a coach, an additional coach on the field.
When y'all go back and watch the film, what's the reaction when you see these pancake blocks that Trey Smith does, Creed? How do y'all react inside those rooms when you see that?
Well, I probably can't get too excited here right now and put it on full display, but I'm old school. Anytime you see something like that, you can't help but get excited. This game was created and played, that way a long time ago. And so when you see things like that taking place, you can't help but just get fired up and excited, and you're looking for the next one. I just think Trey has done a heck of a job. He plays hard, and he's always looking to find work. And, when you're putting that stuff on tape, it's making those other guys on the other side of the ball be very aware and making sure that they're staying on their toes.
What are your expectations for Hardman, assuming he plays Sunday after he's missed so much time?
The biggest thing with McCole is making sure that he's getting back in the groove. Obviously, with him participating in practice, we're not going to rush things. We just want to make sure that he's good. And then on top of that, we got to get him back in game shape and making sure that he can handle the necessary amount of workload that we want to give him. So, we're excited. Obviously, he's done a heck of a job, and we'll just keep it moving from there. We'll just take it day by day.
It's important to get just a little bit of work before the playoffs, right? For him, you don't want that first duty back to get the playoffs.
Well, yes, I always agree with that. But like I said, we just want to make sure that we're in sync and in rhythm with the training staff and making sure that we're not doing too much or too little, but just making sure we're doing just enough to get him ready where he's back and healthy and ready to go.
Do you guys think, obviously you've been here with Coach Reed the whole time. You've had basically two quarterbacks, and you look around the league, you see the issues the teams have trying to find quarterbacks, setting guys down and doing all this different stuff. You talk to colleagues around the league, are they jealous that you guys have got it pretty good with the quarterback position? Because it doesn't look like it's that easy everywhere else.
What, unfortunately, and this probably sounds bad, I don't talk to too many people during the season. I talk to the guys obviously here, and I talk to family members whenever I can. But, whatever's going on outside the building, obviously that's their own business. And I'm not trying to be, quote unquote, an asshole or anything. But the only thing I focus on, my focus is what's going on here and making sure that we're taking care of business today. And if we're taking care of business today, I know tomorrow we got a chance to give ourselves a chance on Sunday come game time.
I know this is probably your favorite time of year when we start talking about these types of things, but Coach Reed said that you had an opportunity to interact with the owners in a casual standpoint this past offseason. How do you think if you're willing to answer it, that may help as we get to this offseason where you might have another chance to become a head coach.
Well, first of all, I'll say this. I thought the league did a heck of a job with the accelerator program this spring, and it was great to have that opportunity to be a part of that. Obviously, it was a number of coaches and a number of personnel people, and it was a great experience. I thought it went well, but right now that took place in the spring, and I'm where my feet are. The only thing I can control is today, and it's situational football day. It's third down day, so we got to make sure we get back on track.
With the coaching change in Denver, Andy was talking about kind of being ready for anything. What does that mean for you? You feel like there's going to be a whole lot that maybe that they do that you haven't seen before?
Well, I'll say this. Defensively, they've done a hell of a job all year long. And I know this past weekend, the score got out of hand, and sometimes that happens. But I do know this. They have good personnel on that side of the ball. They've done an outstanding job of coaching those guys up. So we're not taking our foot off the pedal just because they had a mishap this particular weekend. Regardless of what is taking place, we got to make sure that we're ready. And like I said, there's a lot of things that we need to work on. We got to make sure we're getting back to playing fundamentally sound football and making sure that we're converting on third downs and making the most of opportunities when presented. So I'm counting on the Denver Broncos to come out and play hard and play fast and to compete their ass off against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Coach Andy Reid said that he wanted to see all three phases playing well before you guys reach the playoffs. Is there anything specific that you want to see out of the offense when it comes to execution or out of your receivers, anything?
Put it this way. I want to see our O-line play a complete game up front. And I know it's not anything that's going to ever be perfect. I want to see the receivers go out there and play sound football, catch every pass, also participate in the run game and getting blocks downfield. I want to see the running backs taking care of the football, reading everything properly. I want to see Pat making all the particular reads and making sure his footwork is good in the pocket. So I want to see these guys play a complete game. I want them to be at their best because we know, do not get me wrong, the regular season is very, very important. We know once that season starts in a few weeks, okay, that notch goes up another notch. So we got to make sure that we're clicking on every phase that there is. And there's a lot for us to work on starting today.
EB, I am right there with you. I would love this Chiefs team to just play a complete and thorough offensive football game over one of these last two games. But as I have said numerous times, it's my new policy for watching a Chiefs game against a bad team. Do not get stressed and do not worry about losing to the bad team until there are 000 on the clock at the end of the fourth quarter and you have lost to the bad team. It made my viewing experience against the Houston Texans much more enjoyable because I just laughed at all the silly things that were happening and the absurdity of the turnovers and missed kicks and yada, yada, yada. That's just how you should do it. Do it for this Sunday against Denver. Do it for next Sunday against Vegas. That's my recommendation. It will make your life so much easier. Because these games don't, the Chiefs should sleepwalk through these two games and get wins. I know it's not as simple as that. I know you can lose to any time any given Sunday, yada, yada, yada. I get it. But overall, the Chiefs are thoroughly more talented than these two teams. And these are two teams just packing it in. I mean, the Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett. They're going to have an interim head coach in Jerry Rosburg coming into this game, who was only first brought in to teach Nathaniel Hackett how to use timeouts. And then you face the Raiders in your final game of the season with Jared Stidham at quarterback. The Chiefs should be fine going forward. That'll do it for this 1 o'clock hour. Mike Depp. Coming up at the 2 o'clock hour, we're going to recap a massive Liberty Bowl and a big performance from Jalen Daniels.
It is time for the final hour of Mic'd Up on this lovely Thursday afternoon in the capital city. After it being a frozen tundra for like a week and a half, Mother Nature decided to say, hey, why don't we do 60? Kansas makes no sense. I know that it isn't just Kansas. The thing is just Kansas, but it's not just Kansas. But this state makes no damn sense. We were truly, this time last Thursday, in an Arctic storm. Like this time, last Thursday, we were an icicle and an ice cube. It was like -10. That's what it was. Meanwhile, like we had snow falling. Meanwhile, a week later, it is 60 degrees outside. It makes no sense at all. The world is strange. The world is broken. The world will eventually end. That's my take from this. To go from, in a single week, -20 wind chill to 60 degrees outside. Still windy. Still very windy. It's very windy today. But warm. I didn't have to wear a jacket. I didn't wear a jacket to work today. It felt weird. Felt very strange. Weather makes no sense to me. No sense. This has been, once again, Weather Talk with Fulton Caster. Coming up here to wrap things up in the 2 o'clock hour of Mic'd Up, we're going to get to a Liberty Bowl recap, and I chose to do it right here because I can go as long as I want and go off on as many tangents and diatribes as I so choose about the Kansas Jayhawks and wrapping up their season after an amazing matchup against Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl. We'll have You Did What coming up in this hour, as well as Kyle and I break down in my opinion, both like bad, shouldn't have happened story in the NBA, but also a incredibly funny story in the NBA last night. And I'll take another look at the Chiefs pass rush and how well that they're starting to progress coming into the home stretch of this season. If you want to be a part of the show in the final hour, as always, join in on the Big O Tires text line 785-272-9429, or hop in the comments of our YouTube live stream on YouTube at Sports on 580. On YouTube, you can find it, or on our website, 580wibw.com, or heck, send me a tweet, Sports on 580. You can holler us on our Twitter account on Twitter as well. Before I get into the Liberty Bowl, I have to address this text we got while the coordinators were speaking from 785. In response, I assume, to my comment that ranch isn't good. Text from 785 said, I'll put ranch on ice cream. You person, no. No. You better be kidding. If you're still listening, you better be kidding. That can't be real. Because if you do, that is criminal behavior. That is, I'm going to ask Brendan and Dan to accept a late addition to What Is Wrong With You's Tournament of Failed Champions behavior. Is you put ranch on ice cream. And that goes for any of you other ones out there. If you've done that, shame on you. That's too far. That's too far. Don't ruin ice cream like that. I've only just gotten into the ice cream game because I learned how to eat it and not destroy my body as I do it. Ice cream is good. It's good. Don't do that. Also, same to 785. Yes, you did get under my skin. I'm impressed. Not really. It's not an impressive tactic. And I love the good fun graphic here, Texter. It's easy. If y'all have learned anything about me in a year plus being on the various shows here on 580 WWW, I can get hot and angry and rant and tirade about the silliest things. It's not hard.
I probably shouldn't do it as much as I do, but I do. Still, ranch and ice cream, you're destroying it. Teach their own to an extent. But to get to some actual sports here on a sports talk show, the Liberty Bowl was played last night between KU and Arkansas in Memphis, Tennessee, where they are without running water. The entire Liberty Bowl was out with running water, and they had about 1 billion porta-johns for the event. That was the single greatest game of college football I think I might have ever seen. There's some other, competitions up there. The Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes duel a few years ago. That was a gem of a game. But this Liberty Bowl that Arkansas won 55-53 in triple overtime was amazing. And it had everything you would want. Due to numerous self-inflicted wounds and turnovers, being 2 interceptions and a fumbled kickoff, Kansas went down 24-7 at the end of the first quarter. And I'm not going to lie to any of you. My hopes began to dwindle right there. KU went down 24-7, and I was like, well, this isn't ideal, but I thought, hey, get to a 2-possession game at halftime. You're right in this thing. Get in 2 possessions, then you score out of half. You're here. You are here. You got it. You're good to go. That's what needs to be done. And to give Kansas credit, they were kind of within the ballpark at halftime. They were down 31-13 at half. Not exactly the, 2-score game that I wanted, but you're in the ballpark at 31-13. You're in the ballpark with you gaining the ball first. Well, then KU doesn't do anything with the first couple of possessions. And Arkansas scores to go up 38-13 at the 8:43 mark of the third quarter. And once Arkansas went up 38-13, I will very much not lie to you. I thought it was over. I quite literally, I kept the game on. I never turned it off. But I just started doing other things while the game was on. It became a background game for me. I was like, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to pay attention a little bit. But, man, this just sucks. This is how the game has to end. Then Topeka native Kai Thomas scores his second touchdown of the game to make it 38-20. And I was like, hey, look at that. Kai has 2 touchdowns. That's awesome. I love seeing Kai getting another touchdown. It's awesome. It's great. It's fantastic. I love to see that. That was cool. It just has another subplot to this game. I love the amount of Kansas kids, like Kansas native kids, that got chances in this game. It was awesome. Mason Fairchild had a good game, got a touchdown. Andy Alprada, Kai did his thing. Jared Casey did Jared Casey things and being the clutchest player in America. He did what he needed to do. But Kai scores his second touchdown to make it 38-20 near the end of the third. And then KU starts driving a little bit. And then the end of the third quarter comes, going to the fourth quarter. And KU's done 18 points entering the fourth quarter. And then Owen Peppergiardis. I probably butchered that. It's I have to assume Italian or Greek. Probably Greek. A freshman walk-on kicker that KU turned to after Jacob Orchilla kept stinking up the joint. Made a field goal to make it 31-23, basically right at the start of the fourth quarter. And at that point, I was like, you've pulled me back in. 2-score game, 15 points. You've pulled me back in fully. And then KU's defense gets several stops. And I'm like, cool, offense, let's go. The offense does Jack Diddley squat for, 13 minutes. And I'm like, just wasting this defensive effort. Wasting it. Well, then Kansas puts together a very nice drive after, because Arkansas got the ball back after a failed 4th down attempt by KU. That almost worked, but the pass was tipped at the line, and Trevor Cardell could not catch the deflected pass. So when that was with about 3 minutes left, I can actually probably find the exact timestamp of the moment. But when that drive ended, I was like, okay, this is over. This is beyond done now. Yeah, that drive ended, if I can find it here, at 3:52 in the fourth quarter, and KU had no timeouts. So with under 4 minutes left and KU having no timeouts, Arkansas got the ball. And I was like, Arkansas's up by 15 points. KU came in to stop the clock. This is ball game. Arkansas then proceeds to just do some stupid things, including on 3rd and 3. They did a great thing. They had a 43-yard pass play on 3rd and 3. That was ball game. That's been Kansas started burning out their timeouts there. That was ball game. And then on 2nd and 11, they run a weird end-around play for Matt Landers, who then fumbles the ball, honestly, on a play that I don't really think was a fumble, but those referees, they let it stand. But he fumbled it, and Kobe Bryant returned it to the Arkansas 48, and you're like, Kansas has life, a little bit of life. But I still have the thought of, okay, now you're out of timeouts, you're trying to score here too. KU gets the touchdown with about a minute left on the clock, a minute 5 officially. Jalen Daniels completed a pass to Doug Emilion for a 10-yard touchdown, and KU's down 8 points. All KU has to do to try and win this game is do the one thing that is damn near impossible, and that's recover an onside kick. And that was my thought. I sent out a tweet on my Twitter account where I basically said, this is going to be a nice note for the game to end on, that KU made it close and scored the touchdown. I was like, cool. Positive note to the end of the game. Good deal. My thought was Arkansas is going to get the onside kick because no one ever recovers these. Let's all go home. Then Arkansas proceeds to just not try to recover an onside kick. Tabor Allen deserves credit. He executed that kick perfectly. Hit the ball, caught it to its end over end, little skips. It skipped through the front line of the hands team for Arkansas, which was the goal on that play. But then an Arkansas player just watches the ball arrive and doesn't go for it. For some reason, doesn't realize he needs to try and get the ball, and then Kenny Logan comes up with it. And I can't lie, I started screaming and jumping up and down in my apartment. My neighbors probably hated me. I went crazy. I was like, holy crap. Keeps got the ball at midfield. Minute on the clock. I was like, we had 60 seconds in a dream, folks. Let's roll. 60 seconds in a dream is what that was for KU. They officially started that drive at a minute 5. The first play was a Jalen Daniels 34-yard pass to Luke Grimm. He got out of bounds. Then there's an incomplete pass, a delay of game on 3rd and 10 at the Arkansas 16. And I'm like, man, this is fully done now. 3rd and 15, 40 seconds left. We're done. Like, no way. And all Jalen Daniels does is complete a 21-yard touchdown pass to Luke Grimm on 3rd and 15 to set up a 2-point conversion chance. And then KU goes to the 2-point play. Jalen Daniels has to look around. He goes high, catches Lawrence Arnold in the back of the end zone. And KU has completed a 25-point comeback from being down 38-13, ties the game at 38, and is set to go to overtime. But before we get to what happened in overtime, what was Arkansas doing with their 40 seconds? Arkansas had 40 seconds and all of their timeouts. That's what they had. Arkansas proceeded to, and this is their drive chart in front of me. Incomplete pass by KJ Jefferson. Rashad Dominion, 11-yard run for a first down. 1st and 10. 14 seconds on the clock. We're still not, trying to stop a clock or anything here. We're at the Arkansas 36. 2-yard pass. 14 seconds on the clock. 2nd and 8. Incomplete pass. There's 2 seconds on the clock. Well, 5 seconds on the clock. 3rd and 8, they run the ball. Somehow get down with 2 seconds left. That to this point, I don't really know how that happened. So you're near midfield. You're 1st and 10 at your 47-yard line with 2 seconds. You would think KJ Jefferson's, he may not be a massively accurate passer. He's got an arm on him, though. He's got a chance. It's midfield. That's where you usually say get to midfield for most quarterbacks to be able to make a Hail Mary. Instead, they run the ball with AJ Green. He does run 35 yards to the KU 18, but clock runs out because there was no way he was going to be able to keep going farther, and we go to overtime. Like, it's going to get washed because Arkansas did win the game. That was the stupidest end-of-game drive I've ever seen. Like, you have 40 seconds in timeouts. All you need is a field goal. Your kicker's long is 51. Why are you not trying to get into field goal range and not go to OT? I don't know. It doesn't matter because things change, but that would. So we go to overtime. KU gets the ball first because they lose the toss. They go on offense first. They get a touchdown to go 45-38. Arkansas on 2 plays when they get it, they score a touchdown. Second overtime, 2 plays, they score a touchdown after a 19-yard pass, then a Rashad Bieniemy run for 6 yards. We're tied at 45 because Arkansas did not go for 2. We go to the second overtime. Arkansas completes pass to A.J. Green for 5 yards, and then KJ Jefferson runs for 20 yards for a touchdown. They are up 53 to 45 because of the new rules. Starting in double overtime, you must go for 2 if you score a touchdown. KU gets the ball. Jalen Daniels, 3-yard run. Second down, there's a holding call that directs KU out to 2nd and 17. 11-yard pass to make it 3rd and 6. And then Jalen Daniels gets a 19-yard pass down the Arkansas 2 to make it 1st and goal. And 2 plays later, Jalen Daniels runs it in for a touchdown. Then, on the 2-point conversion, we get a targeting penalty called. As Jalen Daniels tried to get it in there, there was a targeting penalty that gave KU a second chance at the 2-point conversion. They converted on a pass to who else but Jared Casey to make it 53-all. And then we go to the stupidest thing that exists now, which is the 2-point conversion off, starting in triple overtime. Basically, it's penalty kicks, but way less fun. Arkansas gets the 2-pointer on their first play. KU's second 2-point conversion falls short as Jason Bean takes the pass on an end around and throws it out of bounds. That's a quick recap of the game. I just wanted to really run through it. I hope most of you got to watch the game, but in case you didn't, that's a quick highlight rundown of what the game was. Here's my few notes from the game. First things first, I'm giving Jalen Daniels his flowers. Jalen Daniels had the greatest quarterback game in Kansas history. He threw for 544 yards. He had 5 touchdown passes, a 6th on the ground. It was the greatest quarterback game in the 100-year history of Kansas varsity level football. Nothing better. That should not be lost because after a bad first quarter, which I tell you that with Paul, after a bad first quarter, there were legitimately people wanting to see if Jason Bean should come into the game. Jalen stuck it out. He kept his head up, and he had a fantastic game. And it was awesome. It was amazing. It was great. It's the exact kind of reason that I love Jalen Daniels so much. But I want to get to the thing that a lot of people have been talking about, which is the 2-point conversion play KU ran in triple overtime. For those of you that didn't get to see the game, KU ran one of their classic, basically pitch back reverses. Jalen Daniels takes the snap. He goes to his left. Jason Bean's coming to his right. So they're kind of crossing paths. Jalen Daniels flips it back to Jason Bean. He catches it on basically an end around. And the idea is you can either run the ball in at that point or you're basically looking for the tight end of the end zone. I know a lot of people were upset because you're having the most important play be in the hands of your backup quarterback after your starting quarterback had an amazing game. And Jason Bean ends up throwing the ball out of bounds. It was never really close to finding anybody. Game over. Arkansas wins. And this is to the point of a text here for the 785. The only thing I don't understand, why put the game in the hands of someone else other than the person who had 500 plus yards passing and 5 touchdowns, ride the horse that got you there. I'm with you. Texter, you and I are on the exact same page. Why? And Lance Leipold spoke about this after the game. They had run multiple 2-point conversion plays, like multiple at that point. And they said they're basically out of stuff on the call sheet. And so they were on like their 6th or 7th option of a play when they finally decided to bust that one out, which I will say does tell you Kansas was waiting and was trying to take the ball out of Jalen Daniels' hands, that possibility. They were trying to never get there. And that was their logic, and what they said was the reason why they went to that play was it's a play that's worked before, and it has worked. I'll give them credit. It has worked before. And they had ran out of things to call because they had about 6 2-point conversion plays on the call sheet, and they burned them. First things first, if anyone, I haven't seen this luckily, but if anyone tries to tell you they just need more 2-point conversion plays, 6 is plenty. For the type of situations that is, having 6 2-point conversion plays is usually more than enough on your call sheet for a single game. The other factor is this. Usually when in doubt in that point, your thought is, screw it, we'll just run the ball at the middle. We'll just run the ball. We can run the ball for 3 yards. We'll get our 2 points that way. The problem was KU wasn't able to run the ball against Arkansas. They did KU ran the ball for less than 2 yards a carry. They could not run the ball against Arkansas. They couldn't do it because Arkansas has that SEC size up front. I'll give them credit for that. So KU, in my opinion, got too cute. It's what I said on the Instant Reaction Show with Brennan Dorzinski after the game last night. There is, I believe, an Achilles heel to all ultra creative play callers. The best play callers, the ones we say are great because they're so creative and because they think of these great plays. Something we have talked about is being Andy Kotelnicki. He's so creative with this Kansas offense. All creative play callers, in my opinion, have the exact same fatal flaw. They can get too creative in the biggest moments. They can overthink. They can outthink themselves. Because sometimes when you really distill it down, all an offensive, defensive, all the play calls are, is you're, as an offensive coordinator, trying to outthink the defensive coordinator. That's what you're trying to do. And Andy Kotelnicki, I think, got a bit too cute. I jokingly said there's a phrase I can use for both my favorite football teams, the Chiefs and the Jayhawks, in which the phrase is just Andy got too cute in a crucial moment. But that's right about it being a fatal flaw of all of them. Andy Reid's a fantastic play caller and play designer. But how often for the Chiefs do we talk about Andy Reid getting too cute in crucial moments? They should just simplify things at that point. Because there's also a similar point that I will always say for the Chiefs. For KU that night, Jalen Daniels was on an unprecedented heater. He was on a heater. He was unstoppable. He was arguably the best football player on the field. No disrespect to KJ Jefferson. Well-deserved Liberty Bowl MVP is KJ. He was great. He was awesome. He was so good to watch. But you don't take the ball out of the hands of Jalen Daniels. In my opinion, you spread it out 5 wide, you run some short, different concepts, and you tell Jalen, go make a play. Because I trust that even if he doesn't throw the ball, Jalen Daniels will find a way to run through contact, get the ball in. Because Jason Bean is limited. His accuracy has always been a question, and Jason, for as good of a runner he is, he does not see contact when he runs. So a lot of people discussing, well, he had an angle to the pylon. Jake on Twitter says, would he have made it? Try to like Superman into the end zone. That's not how Jason Bean plays football. He's never been a contact runner. It is what it is. I'm not trying to say to besmirch Jason. He did some great things for this KU program. He kept the ship afloat when Jalen Daniels went down. He got them the win that got them bowl eligibility. Like, he kept things afloat. He should always be remembered for that. He should. He truly, truly should. But it's a tough situation to be in. It truly is. But the other thing I will say is this, and this was Brendan's point before it was mine, so I'll give him credit for it. Bean should have never been put in that position to have to make that decision in the first place. He was forced to where he had to make a split-second decision, and it went bad, and it went south. All plays can always go bad. But Jason Bean also should never have been put in that position. It was a sour way for the game to end. It's an unfortunate note, but overall, the larger point above everything here for the Liberty Bowl is KU showed what they showed all season. And it makes me so happy for this team. They fight. I mean, they fight. They did their best Rocky Balboa in this matchup. They were stunned, bloodied, battered, and bruised against the ropes, where no one would have blamed them for laying down. Everyone just expected them to, because all teams do. You're down big, late. You're losing. Just go home. It's a bowl game. It's the Liberty Bowl. It's nice to win, but go home. But that's not how KU plays football. They fight for 60 minutes. And until that 60 minutes is up, they're going to keep fighting. And it is my favorite thing to have seen from this Kansas football team this year was the fight. They were down 14-0 to West Virginia in week 2. They won that game in overtime. They were down 14-0 to Houston in week 3. They won that game by multiple possessions. They were down big against Oklahoma, almost came back and won that game. Down big against Baylor, almost come back and won that game. This is a team that fights and fights and fights. It's going to be sour with the last memory of this Kansas team being Jason Bean's missed pass. I understand that's going to be with some people for a while. But when I think you should look back on this team and look back on this season, they were here ahead of schedule. They should not have been here this year. And it's a testament to this team and this coaching staff and the group of guys that is around this program that they got to 6 wins this fast. This was a program that, as Jake and I have mentioned, used COVID as an excuse to not face Texas and not lose 100 games in a decade. That's what they did. Because let's be honest, when you look back at that moment in time, they probably could have played. Would have been a little bit more shorthanded than normal, but they could have played. But they found a way to not play, to not lose 100 games, to only lose 99 games in a decade. Just a few years later, they were in a bowl game. And an exciting one. One of the most exciting ones we're going to have this entire bowl season. And they almost won. The expectations have changed for Kansas football, and that's what's so beautiful and amazing. Going into next year, for the first time in 15 years, Kansas is going to have expectations to try and make a bowl. It's not going to be this beautiful Cinderella story of just, oh, okay, you finally got to 6 wins. No, it's going to be, Kansas should get 6 wins. They should try and go to a bowl game. As Paul Myerberg said, if they fill the deficiencies just right and really grow as a team, maybe they get 8 wins. That would be amazing. This Kansas team is not the same one that entered this year, that ended last year. This isn't your doormat of the Big 12 anymore. This isn't your laughingstock of college football anymore. This is a real, legitimate program, and that is what you should remember at the end of the day. It stinks that our final memory of on the field will be Jason Bean's pass, and he's going to get some undue criticism because he should have never been put in that position. But all I ask you to remember, if you are a Kansas football fan or football fan in general, is this is a key football team that now has realistic expectations to be winners. And more importantly, if there's one thing to say about Kansas football, is those boys are going to fight for 60 minutes, and they will not go down lying. If they're going down, they go down swinging haymakers. And then you get a game like Arkansas where some of those babies connect, and they almost get a chance to win the football game. It was great. It was exciting. I'm so excited for Kansas football next season. I've never been this excited for another season of Kansas football than next year because so many guys can be back. We'll see if they will be back. Some guys can transfer. Things can happen. You never know in this day and age of college football. But realistically, almost the entire 2 deep of KU's offense can be back. Most of their defense can come back, which does, I know some people might say, well, should they be back? They were bad. They can get better. KU knows how to attack their deficiencies in the transfer portal. They know how to get better. I am excited for what Kansas football is going to do in the future. It was a great game last night in the Liberty Bowl. KU may have come out on the losing side of it, but I think they earned a lot of respect of a lot of people across the entire country, and that is what should be remembered. We're going to take a time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, time for You Did What here on Mic'd Up. Time for You Did What here on Mic'd Up. I'm going to bring in Kyle here to help me with this because, funny enough, so normally how we, you all have seen us do a segment. Normally, Kyle and I both have different things we would do here. But funny enough, Kyle came in and we have the same exact idea for what to do today. And it's a good enough story that Kyle and I are just doing this combined and getting both of our takes off on what happened in the NBA last night. So first things first, here is what happened. The Detroit Pistons and the Orlando Magic were playing a game last night. I couldn't tell you who won. I really don't care at this point. I truly don't. But an Orlando Magic player, Mo Wagner, appeared to briefly get knocked out by a punch to the back of his head as a brawl happened between the Pistons and the Magic that led to 3 ejections. Now, part of this that I can't deny makes me laugh, and yes, I will be laughing for most of the story, is it was the Pistons at home. They no longer play at the Palace at Auburn Hills. But as I told Kyle, you can take the Pistons out of the Palace, but you can't take the Palace out of the Pistons. As they just have an absolute brawl and a melee. What happened was, and I got a great story here up on ESPN, kind of went through it. Wagner was ejected for a flagrant foul in the situation, and Detroit's Killian Hayes and Hamidou Diallo were thrown for their actions during the scuffle in front of the Pistons bench. With 34 seconds left in the first half, Wagner and Hayes chased an errant Magic pass into the backcourt. Wagner knew Orlando would be called for a backcourt violation as soon as he touched it. As he slowed to let it go out of bounds, Hayes tried to get past him on the sideline. Wagner then hit check to chase into the bench. That's when the brawl started. In the brawl, Killian Hayes apparently looks to have got up, started to kind of swing his arm, kind of being a punch, and he struck Wagner, who slumped over and appeared to be unconscious. There's never been a confirmation of what happened there, so we can't really say. I will not make conjecture on what happened. That is just what people said they saw. Mo Wagner has not commented. Mo's brother, Franz, who also plays in the NBA, said that Mo is fine. He hasn't seen the video, but he knows the last thing that his brother wanted to do was try, cause a fight. Before we get into making the jokes about Malice at the Palace, Kyle, here are the players that could be facing suspensions for leaving the bench area, which is an automatic suspension. These are Magic players who could be facing suspension. Franz Wagner, Cole Anthony, Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, Mo Bamba, RJ Hampton, Terrence Ross, and Admiral Schofield, the best name of the group being Admiral Schofield. Piston coach Dwayne Casey said in an explanation about the decision, quote, because my understanding is you can't leave the bench area and escalate the situation. That's when really bad things happen. Franz Wagner then said the Magic players didn't feel that they had a choice. Franz said, we're aware of the rule, quote, but things like that usually happen on the court, not on one of the benches. You worry that your teammate is down there amongst the whole other team. There have been a lot of comments, and I know, I've made the jokes here openly so many times, that it reminds you everybody of the Malice at the Palace that happened 18 years ago, which was a horrendous event. People going to stands, throwing punches. There's a great documentary on Netflix about Malice at the Palace that I recommend everybody watch because it kind of goes to show the players are made to kind of be scapegoats for fans that really caused the problems. That being said, where I want to enter this whole thing, Kyle, is the Detroit Pistons PA announcer, who I don't have the audio, unfortunately. But the Pistons PA announcer, as this scuffle begins, you can just hear him in the background of all the videos of just saying, stay in your seats. Do not move. If you leave your seat, you will be arrested. Is that one of the wilder things we've seen in some time, Kyle?
I'd say that sentence being uttered at an arena is funny, but if there's ever an arena that it needs to be said at, I think that's
it's
one.
The Pistons.
You gotta play it safe there. That's the only play for the PA announcer.
Yes, they don't play at the Palace anymore. I believe they play at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit.
It's now known as Little Caesars Arena. which is a serious downgrade, but now it can be known as the Little Caesars Brawl.
The Brawl at Caesars is what this should be called now forward. But what I don't understand, and I guess the big part of this for me is if you're Killian Hayes, and that's where I'll go to this. Because if you're Franz Wagner, should you have kind of hip-checked Killian Hayes? Probably not. If you're Killian Hayes, you know the moment that Wagner touches the ball, it's a backcourt violation. It's going near the sideline. You aren't going to do anything with that when you pick it up. You're not going to try and get that ball and make a transition play. Like, I try not to assess blame in certain situations, and I try not to just go overt on blaming certain guys for causing problems when it's usually a compounded issue, because there's numerous people at fault here. Like, my overall point is, I think this is all avoided if Killian Hayes just lets the ball go. Like, just let the possession end. It's not a position where you're going to get a transition bucket out of it. If you get it, you're going to have to restart the possession in more of a half-court set anyways. Just let it be a turnover. But then you can also definitely say Franz should not have hip-checked Killian Hayes. But then I go back to Killian Hayes then doesn't have to punch a guy in the back of the head. Like, the stupid decisions that got us there are what's always baffling of just like, I get guys are testosterone fueled and it's the flow of the game and heat of the moment, but this feels like an incident that could have been avoided if Killian Hayes just used 2 brain cells and just let a ball go. Like, that's what it feels like.
Or just like do a normal like push in the back. Don't hit him in the head to where he's now like laying possibly unconscious. He looked like he was in the arms of some Detroit Pistons assistant coaches with his eyes closed for like 5 seconds, and then you can see in the clip he gets up and walks away. But if you just push him like a little lower, not the back of the head, it's also avoided.
True. That's also avoided as well. So our you did what today is just Malice in the Palace Part 2, which we're now dubbing the Brawl at Caesars, happening between the Pistons and the Magic, which is just another edition of just, you don't need to start these fights. They're silly. They're stupid. They put people in too much harm's way. There's probably going to be a bunch of suspensions from this. The Magic may get so many suspensions they can't play basketball. Like technically leaving the bench area is an auto suspension. During brawls, you can't leave the bench area. Their entire bench did. You in theory could suspend all of them for 1 game, which means for 1 game, the Magic are playing park rules, 5 men, 40 minutes. Go play ball, boys. Just absolutely insane. That is our edition of You Did What today. We'll take another timeout. When we come back, the Chiefs pass rush and how much it's getting better. We'll look at that coming up next. Welcome back into Mic'd Up as we wrap up the show. We were going to get back into the Chiefs pass rush, but I've decided to call an audible, pull an Omaha, because I'm seeing too much that things need to be discussed with the Denver Broncos for a minute again. So, Denver, of course, having a media day like every other team does. The Chiefs have theirs ones today. A lot of the Broncos, like Jerry Rosberg speaking today, and some of the other assistants are speaking today to the media. But our good friend Zach Stevens of DNVR, who we hope to have Zach with us tomorrow. I'm going to, firm up those plans with him. But we hope to have Zach Stevens on tomorrow of DNVR to chat about the Broncos. But he's put out a couple tweets that have been very interesting about what's going on in Broncos country. Very much not writing right now. First, I want to get to this. Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler have fired off some tweets in defense of Russell Wilson. Barstool Sports put out a blog post. Whatever you think about Barstool, that's not the point of this. They put out a blog post discussing that, Russell Wilson's own office and private parking spot and, all the weird things he might have at the Broncos facility and all those little quirky things about it. Well, Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler found it. And they put out these quote tweets. This is what Jerry Jeudy said on Twitter earlier today. I ain't going to keep looking at these false statements about my boy Russ, man. As a teammate, he's the elite work ethic. This man is incomparable. He got an office because he's committed to his life, to this game. I never had a teammate who motivate me more than Russ. And he had the 100 emoji after that. Then KJ Hamler weighed in and said, y'all really trying to bring this man down. Russ is the most dedicated and hardworking teammate I have had, and y'all want to bring up this to put him under. Man, stop it. He's a legend in my eyes. I understand this season is the way he wanted or anybody wanted. I will add KJ Hamler called Russell Wilson three-ski, which might be the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Truly. Here's my thing to Mr. Jeudy and Mr. Hamler. This is such empty platitudes. Watch a Broncos game. Watch Jerry Jeudy during a Broncos game. I have never seen a player act more like a petulant, overgrown 4-year-old than Jerry Jeudy. I think Jerry Jeudy has some talent as an NFL wide receiver. I think he could be, above average receiver in this game. He acts like he's 3 years old, though, every game. He whines and moans and shows the worst bot. He pouts on the field and on the sideline when he doesn't get the ball. Think about the game against the Chiefs in Denver. He pouted and went on such a temper tantrum, he honestly should have been ejected from the game. If you really love playing with Russ so much, why are you acting like a petulant child when he doesn't throw you the football? And KJ Hamler, I don't even know when you've last played. But that's my thing with Jerry Jeudy. Like, I'm happy Courtland Sutton hasn't tweeted anything. Because Courtland Sutton, in the Rams game, they showed a video clip of this. It's made the rounds on Twitter. When Russell Wilson threw that pick, trying to go for Greg Dulcich in the end zone on 3rd and 4, and Jalen Ramsey picked it off, there's a shot. Courtland Sutton is wide open at the sticks. Easy check down pass. You watch as Russell throws it deep. Courtland Sutton jumps up and down with his hands in the air, seemingly frustrated that Russell took a shot downfield rather than throw it down short, and then the ball was picked off. Like, I'm not gonna believe anything these Broncos receivers say about riding with their quarterback, because actions speak louder than words. That's a true thing. That's a belief I have. The actions of the Broncos receivers is that they hate their life playing with Russ because they are all always seemingly to complain about what Russell does. Like, I know I've taken a lot of shots at Russell Wilson. I'll keep taking shots. I think he's very much past his prime. I think he's a weird dude, and I'll make jokes about what kind of a weird dude he is. Not really like hate on him, but just he's a weird dude, and I'll make my jokes. But then Zach Stevens tweeted this about what Russell Wilson said during practice today. Zach Stevens tweets that Russell Wilson said the Broncos had one of their best practices today because they knew they had to step up. You're 4-11. If there was a time to step up, it was way earlier, boys. And this is the kind of stuff that I like when I take my shots at Russell or I make jokes about him. This is the kind of crap I'm talking about. Like, I'm not against the guy saying and putting out the platitudes of like, oh, We know we need to play better. Oh, the guys had a great practice today. We got a new vibe, a new this, a new that. But it says because you guys knew you had to step up. What are you stepping up for? They knew they had to step up to get their faces beat in by the Chiefs. I don't know. What are you stepping up for? Like, that's my problem. And that's where, like, you know, I know we are a Chiefs station. And talking about Denver a bunch these past few days is not usually what we do. It's partly because they are the opponent for the Chiefs this week. I'm going to bring them up more. But their entire situation just baffles me. Because the culture is bad. I don't believe what any of these guys are saying, and I think that is a problem. It's one thing to see quotes that you laugh about a little bit and think they're a little bit out there, a little bit different. It's another when you look at a quote and you're like, there's no way you believe what you're saying. Goes back to Jerry Jeudy. He can tweet all he wants about how Russ is his dude, that he respects his work ethic, respects his grind, that he would love him as his teammate. Dude, I watch you on a football field. I watch you whine and complain on a football field about that quarterback you're defending. I watch you. Russell saying, well, we had a great practice day because everyone knows they need to step up. What are you stepping up for, though? To finish with pride? Pride went out the window of this team months ago. Like, pride would have not been giving up 51 points to the Rams. I don't mean this to come off as me trying to kick people when they're down or make fun of another team or take shots. It's just, I see stuff like that, and that's the stuff where I'm like, to me, that's the sign that there's stuff intrinsically wrong with the culture of your team. When guys feel like they have to prove to you that everything's okay. It's kind of that, I cannot remember like what parody Twitter account put it out. It's the whole like, you know, I'm not mad. Make sure to please let them know that I am not mad, bro. Make sure that you did not to know they did not get to me. It's like, if you have to keep saying all these things, but your actions are not backing up what you're saying, it rings hollow to me. That's what all this stuff with the Broncos seems to be to me. It rings a little bit hollow in my opinion, but that's just me. They can do what they want, but it seems so silly. It just always seems so silly. We'll take one final timeout. We get the mic drop coming up next. Time for the mic drop to wrap up this edition of Mic'd Up. I want to thank you all for joining me today. It's a very simple one for me. KU had a heck of a season. I've never been more proud of them. Never been proud more of the fight that those boys showed. And I'm so excited for whatever Kansas football does in the future, because the future, for the first time, and I don't even know how long, is actually looking up for Kansas football. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. I couldn't be more excited. It should be a fun one for whatever Kansas football gets up to next season. That'll do it for our show today. Thank you all for joining me. Remember, it's a run of solo shows, so it's just me for a while, and I appreciate you coming to hang out. Coming up next year on 580 WIBW, 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Stay tuned for that coming up next.